Welcome to the Inner Athlete Podcast, where we discuss all things youth athlete development and youth mentoring. Welcome back to the Inner Athlete Podcast, first one of 2024 back in the facility. I think we had previous episodes with Mr. Callison all the way from the US, good friend of mine, but we've got a new face here, Jack. Jack, do you want to quickly introduce yourself and, what do you do? Bit of a history, like maybe a sporting history as well.
Yeah, sure. Hey, I'm Jack. So new coach here at Inner Athlete. Started coaching here end of last year. Loving it, which is great. Play footy, bit of basketball, primarily football though, in the ruck position, which is always a bit of fun, as my ruckmen out there will know. But I'm really excited to be here today and share things with you.
Yeah, just talk about a little bit of your journey. Playing ruck as well. I don't know. Let them know, what your height and weight is and all that jazz, and just give them a bit of reference.
Yeah, so like 6'7", 202 centimeters, at about currently I'm at like 93 kilos. I was closer to 100, but I stopped taking creatine over Christmas. Just sort of fell off with the consistency. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna have a clean state in the new year and then just restart the creatine cycle. But it's a conversation for later.
Yeah, it's another conversation.
Yeah, it's another
heaps of health benefits coming out now with creatine. Talk to us about like your footy career. Obviously, being a tall guy, you're relatively lean. Like I'm 6'2", I'm 112 kilos, so obviously I'm shorter, but I'm a lot heavier.
Yeah.
So how do you go about throughout your playing career as a junior, like to getting up to size and making sure you got enough strength and power to keep up with the ones that are pretty strong?
Yeah, so I was always alright. Like during my junior years, like I didn't really play a whole lot of ruck because I wasn't super tall until I was like 16, 17, 18. Like in high school, I just had that growth spurt and just shot up like a little beanstalk. So when I got into like under 19s and I was playing for Chelsea, I noticed that, I might need to start to get into the gym here because there's some bigger bodies. And especially when I started to play, like I'd play Saturday, play my game in the 19s and then help out in the resis afterwards. And versus some fully grown men, as a 18, 19-year-old, you just sort of get tossed around. And I was like, all right, I need to put on some size, I need to put on some strength so I can hold my own in the contest. Like I had the jumping ability and I'd be able to out-jump all my opponents, but the second it comes to a ball up or a throw in,
physical contact.
Yeah, I just get tossed to the side and, sure, I get a couple free kicks here and there, but for the most part, that's just how you rock. So I had to learn as well to sort of get into the right positions and how to use my body as I could. So I'd often use like my hips, sort of lean into them a little bit more, use their momentum to then generate some space. But you come up against another crafty ruckman that does that, that's, taller than you and got 30, 40 kilos, you're kind of at a loss and you just have to suck it up and just take it for the day. Bad day at the office. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, so you mentioned something really interesting. So you mentioned that you were, I guess, essentially strength-wise and size-wise, you're undersized in that sense against other ruckmen, but you learn to kind of like be really crafty. So you managed to kind of like work around, I guess, what you had a deficit in. And you became like a better player in that sense. Yeah,
definitely. And I mean, you got to be resourceful. Like if you can't beat him in one way, you got to find another way to beat him. Like you've still got to be competitive, otherwise you're just going to get dragged to the pine.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's like with Novak Djokovic. I think Novak's the GOAT when it comes to tennis. He's
pretty good.
Because the Oz Open's on at the moment.
Yeah, he played last night, didn't he?
Yeah,
the Aussie guy.
Then it's interesting. His game is so intriguing because he every tournament or every year he seems to just get better and better. And like last year, he showed not many signs of slowing down, except for Roland Garros where he lost in the final, but he almost had a clean sweep.
Yeah.
But he manages to plug holes in his game no matter what. He's probably the most flexible athlete there. He's not the biggest server as such, but his serve has been relatively high.
Yeah.
He's tall. He's obviously got the strength to back up, but he's not like a massive powerhouse. but he has enough in order to keep up. And he's probably one of the best well-rounded players. He doesn't really have much of a serve volley game, but he can utilize that if he needs to as well. And then obviously being in the game for so long, he's very crafty, and he's just like, he kind of knows the strengths and weaknesses and where to find those gaps when it comes to other tennis players as well. So, which is really interesting. But he tends to, I think the first round match, he actually struggled because he played someone he's never played before as well. And that's why Grand Slams are really interesting, when you don't play someone who's, top 10 and they lose, or, they drop a set when they weren't expected to.
Yeah.
But those, young kids might do well, but then eventually the more experienced you are and more skilled and less gaps you have, that you'll be able to find those spaces in someone else's game. But back to you specifically. So what happened? So you try to get stronger. What happened? Did you get into the gym? Did you start focusing on gaining strength and size?
Yeah. So I just joined like the local Good Life with like a couple of mates from school, and we just sort of go there after school, do bits and bobs. Like we had a program that we're following, but it wasn't like a footy program necessarily. It was just get big quick. That kind of...
Is it like a bodybuilder style?
Yeah, just some bodybuilder programming kind of thing that you just find on the internet that, is just generic as barbell bench, bent over row, back squat.
Pretty standard stuff.
Standard stuff. I'm like, all right, starting out. But I don't know, I just sort of found eventually it didn't really get me anywhere. Like, sure, I got a little bit stronger, I put a little bit on size, but it didn't really translate into my sport a whole lot. Like, I didn't run faster. I didn't jump that much higher. Like, I did a little bit, the box jumps here and there, but, it was here and there. It wasn't routine.
Yeah. And then where did you find the program, actually?
God, I can't even remember. It was literally just like my mate found it and he's like, oh, this is sick. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Because, like, he'd been going to the gym for a few months before me. So, like...
Was he a footy player?
No. He played, I think, a little bit of soccer here. He had played footy in the past, but he wasn't playing football at the time. He was just focusing just on gym and school.
Okay, so he was just focusing on just getting big and swole.
Yeah, that's his goal.
Yeah, okay. So, obviously, you had some success to some degree, but in terms of improving your general athleticism, it didn't really pay off. Yeah. Was there really, like, a point where you're like, okay, maybe I need to do something a bit more focused throughout that time?
Yeah, there was probably a couple points. The first one that's the most, like, I don't know, memorable, I guess, or just always at the back of my mind when we think about, like, overtraining. And I remember in our session, like, last week, how Stefan was talking about his overtraining. And I was just in the back of my mind like, I've been here. I know this feeling. Because essentially what I would do was, like, go to footy training on, like, a Friday night, for example, ride my bike from Cornish to Parkdale, however long that took, like half an hour. And then I'd do football training, ride my bike from Parkdale to Aspendale, and then ride my bike again from Aspendale to Chelsea, go do legs, and then a HIIT session on the treadmill after that, and ride my bike home. And I was sort of wondering why am I getting anywhere, I feel tired, I feel sore, but I'm not noticing any differences. And like looking back, I'm just like, what am I doing? Like,
yeah,
it's just textbook. Like,
because you thought that, training more is better.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's, it's the mindset I think a lot of people, like young people have, is more is better, and it's not the case. Like, recovery is king.
Yeah. It's kind of like, what happened when was that point? When did you realize, like, oh, this is ridiculous?
When I starting like studying, like, I guess back end of like maybe year 12 and PE, start to learn a little bit about recovery, but it's all very, very basic and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you couldn't think of how it applied to me or to yourself, I mean.
Yeah, I guess. Like, I was probably a little bit, I don't know, arrogant maybe, for lack of a better term, but like, think,
you're too good.
Kid, yeah, I'm too good, like that sort of stuff. So I guess I just sort of had to humble myself a little bit. And yeah, when I started going to uni, I was like, setting myself up for failure here.
Is that because you didn't understand the mechanisms at play, or like what are the potential, long-term consequences?
Probably just the long-term consequences. Like, I understood the mechanisms and all that, but I just probably didn't think like long-term, all right, where is this going to get me? Is it going to get me where I want to be?
Yeah.
And then, just had like, I don't know, I guess over that summer break, I sort of changed the way I trained a little bit. I did a bit more research because I knew that I was like, all right, I want to go down this sports science sort of field. Like, how can I apply what I'm about to learn into my own training, my own world? And then, I started to do a bit more research, found like guys like Eugene Tower and that sort of stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, there's a different way of thinking, out there. It's not has to be what this set and standard, like gold standard of training is. There's other ways and other perspectives. And then I just sort of picked and chose, what resonated with me the most and my feelings in training, and then just sort of put together what was best for me, I found.
It sounds like you kind of feel like, you have a stimulus, you need to let your body respond to that stimulus, then adapt to the stimulus.
Yeah.
Then just rinse and repeat that.
Yeah.
Probably the way hundreds and thousands of times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Then where are you now? So you kind of like had a bit of an epiphany, throughout your uni.
Yeah.
Right. Then what happened to your training then? So moving forward from being, I guess, like more like a bodybuilder style to going through uni, then kind of like, how did your training start to change?
Yeah. So I pretty simply just started to incorporate more sports specific movements. So more jumps, throws, locomotion sort of stuff as well. So like they had a sled there. I probably never touched a sled ever before that. I was like, oh, I don't need this, and then I was like, holy shit, this is actually really, really good. And like I was getting knee pain at the time, and I was like, wow, my knees feel great. Go figure. And like I watched a video, the knee guy?
The Aussie dude lives in America. Ben something.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know. I just saw like a video of his on like Instagram or Facebook, and he was just walking through a couple of sled stuff, and he was like, oh, you should start to sled backwards. And I was like, oh, yeah, maybe I'll give it a try. And like just started to work through, in those different planes of motion, start to include some rotational sort of stuff, and just, structure and routine was the biggest thing, making it a routine thing that I did consistently.
Yeah.
And noticed the benefits. I started to jump higher, I started to run faster, and I started to perform better, which is why I started gym in the first place.
Yeah, and then it just took you a couple of years to figure that out.
Yeah. And just had to, baby steps. But like, I guess the thing was, I was, doing it all my own. Like, you had the PT sesh here and there with like the complementary sessions here and there, like with the PTs at the gym. But I remember just, I don't know if it was the quality of the PT or because they knew that they weren't going to make money from me, that like they just sort of didn't care about the session. Like I was like, oh, can you get you to look at my compound lifts? Because, I think I'm okay, but I'm not 100% sure. And I remember I got him to look at my like back squat, and he was like, yep, it's all good there, no worries. And I was probably going at like quarter depth. So like for a big man, I'm quite mobile and I can go pretty much all the way down. And like I was limiting myself in only, quarter like squat depping. And then the second I start to try and go that further range of motion, wasn't strong through there.
Yeah.
So like that didn't help as well. I had to sort of relearn to squat essentially. But built that up a bit, and then, just really started to notice the improvements, start to actually put the size on my diet. I started to eat a whole lot more than I had previously.
Yeah, then obviously that links into it. So what were you eating like in high school when you're playing footy? Then kind of like, how did your eating start to change throughout?
Yeah, so like, I guess, God.
I know this is hard.
Probably a brekkie. I'd either have like, your up and go banana, or I'd skip it. So like because I'd have to wake up, catch the bus, go to bed later, wake up as like late as I could to be able to leave. And then, so sometimes I'd skip brekkie. Lunch would probably be like leftovers, whatever, it's pasta or like a sandwich or something like that. Couple snacks and here and there for recess, but sweet stuff, some savory stuff. Probably not, looking back, probably not the best stuff to eat, but it's all right. It was yummy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's
and like
what's palatable.
Yeah, it's palatable, and I mean, at the end of the day, like you run around a whole lot during high school. I know for me at least, I was every lunch, recess, every free period we got, we're just out playing sport. Running around, playing soccer, kicking the footy. So like we're a whole lot active than we really thought. And then I'd eat, just like a sandwich or two, have the little snacks, and then there'd be sort of nothing until dinner. Might have a snack when I get home, but it'd probably just be something sweet like biscuits or a cookie or, not super nutritious.
Yeah, but did you notice that you were like hungry most of the time though, growing up? Like, because you said you started to shoot up when you were 16 years old, right? Did your metabolism start to increase by quite a bit?
Yeah, definitely. I did notice I started to like eat bigger portions. I was eating more frequently. I didn't really notice like, I guess, a turning point, but definitely in year 11, year 12, I was...
Yeah, compared to like year 9, year 10.
Yeah, I was eating like a horse. Like, I was just trying to get as much in as well.
Yep.
Started to like supplement a little bit as well. And just protein powder. My mate tried to get me to get one of those like mass gainers, but I was like, nah, I'll be all right, thanks.
Yeah, I think we can steer clear of those.
Yeah, nah, it's not for me.
No, that's good. But I think there's some real key lessons you've mentioned that you've kind of matured quite a lot when you start to acquire this knowledge. I guess, what are some of the key lessons? Because obviously we've got, kids and parents listening to the podcast. What are some key lessons that, I guess, what are 3 key takeaways in terms of from a training perspective, but also 3 from a nutrition perspective that you had wished you had done earlier, or that you had wished that you had applied that you didn't? Or, what are some key things? Yeah.
So I guess training wise is just... consistency is key. I know you'll like sound like a broken record, but there's a reason everybody says it. Like, and it doesn't just mean consistently training in the gym. It also means consistent recovery. So making sure you're getting your 8-9 hours of sleep. You're meeting your like at least your maintenance requirements for your food, and then going into a surplus if you want to really bulk up and put on that size.
Yeah, like during the off season.
Yeah, during your off season in footy.
And this is sorry, break this. This is more for like the tall, lean kids. Yeah, this is like the ones that really struggle to put on that muscle mass.
Yeah, and it's just you got to consistently eat, especially on the days when you're more active. You're going to want to eat more because you're going to burn more energy, and like you're not going to consciously think about that, when you're setting up your meal plan. But like a day where you've got, a training session, you might have a school training session as well, and you might have a gym session as well. You might want to eat, the 30% more than what you've eaten on a day where you've got a rest day and you're not doing much. Because you're going to burn that more energy. You're going to feel more tired. You're going to need that fuel for then the next day for you to recover properly.
Yeah, and also for the day prior as well that you still got to recover from, where you're experiencing DOMs or something like that, where like a protein can actually like slow down the recovery rate. But also food is, I guess you have the stimulus, which is the training. You have the adaptation period, which is the sleep and nutrition side.
Yeah.
But then you have like obviously the recovery, the component within that as well. Then you have the response. The response is we should be able to recover faster in order to train again as well. So the more training sessions you can get with the consistency plus the good nutrition, the more frequent you can train, but also at an intensity that continues to drive that adaptation as well.
Yeah. And like just on that consistency, like all you need for growth is, 10 sets per week on each group. And I remember we had that seminar with Nash and he said something in line with that. He's like 2 times a week, 10 sets per group.
Yeah.
And like it's plain and simple. If you hit that volume, you're going to grow. As long as you're eating as well, you're not eating in, a deficit or a maintenance, you're going to gain weight.
Yeah.
But you've just got to be consistent with both. Everyone says it, but there's a reason why everyone says it.
And even that you mentioned before about when you start to, I guess, train a lot more athletically, that your vertical jumps start to improve, your knee pain start to go away. Your training was more designed about improving your athleticism. Were you playing footy at the time?
Yeah. So I was still playing footy then when I started out.
So it even fed into that in terms of you playing on the field.
Yeah, and that in turn, like in line, sort of fed into my motivation as well. Like it started to really think like, okay, I'm really putting in the work here and I'm starting to get reap the rewards. Like didn't feel like a waste of time. And I know that like a lot of people can sort of feel like they get into that sort of rut, especially like starting out, they'll have a highly, big period of motivation where they're really determined and really excited to get into the gym. And then you'll just sort of see them drop off, after a couple of months because they sort of question why. And I think having like specific or smart goals is the best way to go about it. I didn't have any specific goals starting out. It was, get big, put on some strength. Like,
Very
that's
general.
it. Yeah. But like, I didn't have any way of measuring it, keeping myself accountable, giving myself a time period as well. So having a specific, measurable, attainable, and time efficient goals is the way to go.
But yeah, I think quickly summing up, I think number one, the biggest lesson probably sounds like you probably just need the knowledge. I think you wanted to be in this industry, that you acquired the knowledge, you applied the knowledge, you got the results that you wanted, number one. But then, for those who don't have the time, energy, or effort, where can people actually start?
Yeah, so I think seeking guidance is probably the best way to do it. And especially in light of COVID, there's a whole plethora of like online coaches now, which is sort of, I think, a bit of a shift in the industry as to what some people like were sort of going a bit towards more. Obviously, you still want to try and get into like a one-on-one session or, a place like this where you've got a coach on the floor that's going to be able to guide you through the correct form and be able to help you understand why you're doing this for your sport or for whatever your goal is, so that it just doesn't feel tedious or it's like, oh, what's the point, You're doing it for a reason. And that reason is then linked back to your goal. So it's going to help to keep you motivated and keep you determined. But 100% seeking guidance and some direction from a coach is the best way to go forward.
There you have it. Jack just said, just sign up here. That's it.
Recipe for success.
That's it. And then having, as you mentioned before, it's like having the coach setting those clear intentions. You might have a timeline that's associated with it. Okay, cool. We just reverse engineer from there and then just write the program and we start moving forward and implementing from there. And then I think the other part, is when you've got a plan or you've got a lot of moving parts, is implementing, one part at a time. I think sometimes the process can become quite overwhelming. Most people just come into a gym and just want to sign up and then just, start training. But you do need a bit more of a broken down, needs to be a little bit more methodical, meeting them where they actually are at this point in time, understanding a bit of injury history, dietary restrictions is a big one as well. Then trying to piece together where they're actually at, and understand that first, then you can start to make those minor modifications that are very simple. So, how do you, it's the old analogy is like, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time.
Yeah.
It's just like one chunk.
Yeah, exactly.
One chunk. Once you've done that over 3 or 4 months, you've worked your way through, quite a bit of the process, and it's more ingrained in terms of a lifestyle change, rather than be like, here's your meal plan, here's your training plan. You're going to train this many days a week. And it's like, it probably doesn't even fit within the lifestyle of the person as well. So I think that's a real big part, is like, can it fit within someone's lifestyle, especially with younger kids, that, their training schedule. We work with swimmers, they're swimming, between 15, 20 hours a week, which is huge. Plus they got gym, plus they got school, plus they got, extracurricular on top of all that. And it's like, where are they going to get like everything else? We just need to think more logistically, in terms of the real world, so then it can actually be appropriately applied, and potentially as things change throughout the year, then we can ramp up or need to ease back based on what's happening in that time of the year.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, just even schools, for example, most schools nowadays have a gym there. Like, I know there's going to be some that don't, but I can think of all the local high schools that'll have a mini gym of some description in there that people can use in lunch, and like, that's a great way to get started as well. Like, I'm sure there'll be a staff member there that's got some experience, or a coach. Like, I know at Haileybury, they've got coaching team there for the kids that come in on lunch to use the gym, so that they can actually learn to use the gym without, running the risk of injury, doing everything safe and effectively.
Yeah. Boys at that age are high risk taking behaviour.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I remember, there's a few head scratching moments there during placement where just boys will be boys, I guess, for lack of better terms, but like, just think they can move a mountain, but you just sometimes be like, all right, this is where we're starting out. You'll get there eventually, but baby steps.
No, sometimes you got to let reality hit them in the face.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes they just need a reality check.
Cool. I think that's pretty much it. I think we've discussed what we wanted to. until the next time, if you like this episode, please like, subscribe, share, leave a review as well. It really does help us because we really want to push youth athlete development. I think I made the prediction early, I think it was like 2022 actually, I made the prediction that youth athlete development was going to be a bigger thing. It has become a bigger thing. It has become a lot more mainstream now to get kids into the gym. We're hearing more stories of kids younger and younger that really want to double down on athlete development and their pursuit to make state teams or national teams. But the last 3 years have really, 4 years now, have really screwed up that athlete development, that timeline that they normally would go through. And there's been some sort of like physical development delay in terms of, running, change of direction, jumping and landing, because, if kids aren't playing around, they're not really developing it. So we see it as a growing space. It will continue to evolve. You're seeing in the US, it's massive over there now. It's only going to become bigger here, and we're happy to be surfing that wave. And hopefully 100%. You will come join us on the wave as well. We'll see you on the next one. You have just listened to the Inner Athlete podcast. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with the release of weekly episodes. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram to get great tips on all things youth athlete development and youth mentoring.